slide later to turn in. Remembering our virtual class norms. Keep your camera on as much as possible. Make sure you're in a well-lit, quiet space. Mute when you're finished speaking. Write questions and on-task comments in the chat. Be fully engaged throughout each class. And remember, our sessions are being recorded. And if you or I lose connection, remain calm and rejoin the call. Just a couple of reminders before we get started. You need to have an answer anywhere it says in red in this presentation. So whenever you click on the presentation, it'll make your own copy that's yours, that you own, and then you will you will type your answer anywhere that it says in red. If your presentation is blank when you turn it in, you will get a 0. Keep clicking it until it highlights the text. Then you can start typing your answers. So you got to keep clicking where it's red, and then it'll highlight it, and then you can start typing. Another reminder about Edulastic. Remember to let me know if it doesn't work for you, and I will let you know what to do next. And answer and read all the questions. I've had a couple of scholars turning in blank questions. That does not help your eye. I want to know what you know. Please answer all of the questions. Alright, so let's get started. Next we have our vocabulary. So I'm not going to read all of the definitions, but I'll read what our vocabulary words are for today. So we have decimal, add, subtract, estimate, sum, difference, rounding, tape diagrams, and place value. And you'll have this presentation for yourself, so you can go back and read them to yourself later. And then our objectives for today. Alright, and we're going to head into our warm-up. So for our first question, don't do the second one yet, but we're going to be on the first one first. Go ahead and round 9.354 to the nearest tenth. Write that in the chat. Round 9.354 to the nearest tenth. And if you don't want your peers seeing your answer, go ahead and message me privately in the Zoom, and you do that by clicking the arrow where it says everyone, and then just type in my name to send it directly to me. Let's take the next 30 seconds to do that. Alright, so for our answer, I'll work it out real quick. So we were looking for the nearest tenth. This is our tenths place. We look to the right, and we see that it's 5 or more, so we're going to round up. So our answer should be 9.4. Alright, go ahead and take the next 30 seconds to answer our second question. Round 7.9821 to the nearest hundredth. Round 7.9821 to the nearest hundredth. And remember that if you don't want your peers seeing your answer, you can go ahead and type the chat to me privately by clicking where it says everyone, and then just type in my name, and it'll send it only to me. You have 30 seconds. Alright, so for this problem, we were rounding to the nearest hundredth. So we'll go to our hundredths place. We'll look to the right. It's 4 or less, so we're going to round down. So that makes our answer 7.98, rounding to the nearest hundredth. I'll go ahead and give you guys 10 seconds to write that down or put it into your Google slide. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so for our next problem, we're going to be adding decimals using tape diagrams. So you're going to see a couple questions like this on your exit ticket with these tape diagrams. So first, to do this, we're going to ask ourselves, what decimals do each of these diagrams represent? What decimals do each of these diagrams represent? Go ahead and put in the chat what you think both of these diagrams represent. So you'll put this one, and then you'll say plus this one. And we'll take about 30 seconds to do that for us. And the reason we're looking at these tape diagrams is because this is a way to visually look at how we add decimals and why they turn out the way they do. Alright, so for our answers, we should have gotten that this diagram represents 0.28, so 28 hundredths, and then this diagram represents 63 hundredths, or 0.63. All right, so our next step in this problem is that we are going to find their sum by counting their tenths together and then their ones. So if we count their tenths together, we have 2 tenths here plus 6 tenths over here, so that would make 8 tenths. So we have 8 tenths. Sorry, that's written really bad. And then we're going to add the ones. So we have 8 ones over here, and then we have 3 ones over here. So if we add 8 plus 3, that would equal 11. So that means we have a tenth to give to the 8. So we're going to make that 9 tenths. And then we have 1 left over. So that would make our answer equal to 0.91. All right, go ahead and take the next 10 seconds to write that answer down for later, or you can go ahead and put it in your Google slide, but we are going to move on in about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So our biggest thing, to summarize all that, and then let me erase this, is with adding and subtracting decimals, here are our steps. We line up the decimal point, that's very important. We add zeros so that there are the same amount of place values after the decimal point in both numbers, and then we just add or subtract as normal. So now we're going to go into our first Khan Academy video.
We're asked to add 0.822 to 5.65. So let me rewrite this. When I rewrite it, I want to line up the decimals so that we add the right place to the right place. And so we could write either number first, although I like to write the larger number first. So let's write 5.65. And remember, the important thing is that we line up the decimal points. So if we write 0.822, so we line up the decimal, let me line up the decimal first. So I'll write the decimal right below the other decimal, and it is 0.822. And now we are ready to add. So let's see what's going on here. So I like to start in the smallest place. That way the carrying works out well. So you might say, wait, I need to add this 2 thousandths to something. I don't see anything up here. Well, you could say there's just a 0 thousandths right up here, and then it makes it very clear. Well, 0 thousandths plus 2 thousandths is going to be 2 thousandths. 5 hundredths plus 2 hundredths is 7 hundredths. 6 tenths plus 8 tenths is 14 tenths. Well, 14 tenths is the same thing as 4 tenths and 1 1. Another way of thinking about it is you're carrying the 1, but really what you're saying is, look, this is 14 tenths. I could write that as 4 tenths.
All right, so now we're going to take the next 15 seconds to type the answer to this question. 0.822 plus 565 equals what? Go ahead and finish what he worked for us. All right, so for those of us who typed in the chat 6.472, you all are correct.
Tenths and a 1, or ones place, or 1 in a ones place. And then you have 1 plus 5 is 6. And of course, you cannot forget the decimal. The decimal goes right there, and this is 6.472.
All right, so next we're going to go into our next Khan Academy video real quickly.
We need to calculate 9.005 minus 3.6, or we could view it as 9 and 5 thousandths minus 3 and 6 tenths. Now, whenever you do a
So go ahead and take the next 30 seconds to type in the chat what is our first step in this problem. What is our first step in this problem? All right, so if you all line up the decimals, that is our first step in this problem. And if you did, go ahead and put those clap reactions in Zoom. I think you all know how to do that. Let's move on.
You do a subtracting decimals problems, the most important thing, and this is true when you're adding decimals as well, is you have to line up the decimals. So this is 9 9.005 minus 3.6 minus 3.6. So we've lined up the decimals, and now we're ready to subtract. So now we can subtract. So we start up here. We have 5 minus nothing. You can imagine this 3.6, or this 3 and 6/10. We could add 2 zeros right here, and it would be the same thing as 3 and 600 thousandths, which is the same thing as 6/10. And when you look at it that way, you say, okay, 5 minus 0 is nothing, and you just write a 5 right there. Or you could have said, if they had a nothing there, it would have been 5 minus nothing is 5. Then you have 0 minus 0, which is just 0. And then you have a 0 minus 6. And you can't subtract 6 from 0, so we need to get something into this space right here. And what we essentially are going to do is regroup. We're going to take 1 from the 9. So let's do that. So let's take 1 from the 9. So it becomes an 8. And we need to do something with that 1. We're going to put it in the tenths place. Now remember, 1 whole is equal to 10 tenths. This is the tenths place. So then this will become 10. You know, sometimes it's taught that you're borrowing the 1, but you're really taking it, and you're actually taking 10 from the place to your left. So 1 whole is 10 tenths. We're in the tens place.
All right, so go ahead and finish the problem. What is 9.005 minus 3.6? Go ahead and type that in the chat. We have 30 seconds to do that. All right, so if you typed 5.405, then you are correct. And we're going to have to move on to our next video. All right, so here's our next video.
What we're going to do in this video is get some practice estimating adding decimals. So here it says 12.93 plus 6.1 is approximately equal to, this little squiggly equal sign means approximately equal to. So try to estimate this and pick the right choice. So pause the video and try to do that. All right, now let's work through this together. So we could work this out by hand, but the whole goal here is estimation. And so if I were doing this in my head, I'd say, well, look, 12.93 is a little bit less than 13, and 6.1 is a little bit more than 6. And it's actually nice because when I rounded, I went down on this number and I went up on this number. So I went up 7/100ths to get to 13, and I went down 1/10 to get to 6. So I feel good when I add them up that we're going to get.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and take the next 15 seconds to put in the chat what is 13 plus 6, and that'll give us our answer. What is 13 plus 6? All right, so if we put in that chat 19, then you were correct. Let's go ahead and move on.
Get pretty close to the actual answer. So 13 plus 6 is equal to 19, and lucky for us that that is one of the choices. And there's multiple ways that you could try to estimate things. For example, you could do a little finer of an estimation. You'd say this is approximately 12.9 plus 6.1, and then you say 12 plus 6 is 18, and then 9/10 plus 1/10 is another 1. So you'd say this is 18 plus 1, and you'd say, okay, that once again gets me pretty close to 19, or this gets me to 19. Let's do another example. So here we're told 5 plus 1 plus 4.91 is approximately equal to what? So pause this video and see if you can figure that out.
All right, so go ahead and try to estimate what is 5.1 plus 4.91. Is it A, B, C, or D? Go ahead and take the next 30 seconds to put that in the chat. What is 5.1 plus 4.91? All right, so if you all put B, 10, then you are correct, and here's why.
Figure that out. Try to estimate it. Try to do it without any paper. Well, the way I would do it is actually very similar to the way we just did the last one. Well, 5.1 is approximately equal to 5, and it's approximately equal to 5, and 4.91 is also approximately equal to 5. I rounded to the nearest whole number in either case, and so that would be equal to that would be equal to 10. And once again, it makes sense because we rounded down here and we rounded up here. We rounded down to go from 5.1 to 5, and we rounded up to go from 4.91 to 5. If you're rounding down in both cases or rounding up in both cases, it might get, your estimate might get a little bit further from your actual answer. So you might want to be a little bit careful. All right, so in this last example,
and then just going back to this presentation, I completely forgot to do this before that video. But remember, with estimating sums and differences, we are going to round both numbers to the same place value, and most of the time, whole numbers. And then we add or subtract as normal. If still a decimal, then follow the steps for adding and subtracting decimals. And now for our last and final video.
All right, now let's get some practice estimating subtracting decimals. So over here it says 12.93 minus 6.1 is approximately equal to what? This squiggly looking equal sign you can view as roughly equal to or approximately equal to. So pause this video and see if you can figure it out. And you shouldn't really need paper for it. The whole point of estimation is to be able to do it quickly and get close to the answer. You don't have to get the exact answer. Well, let's think about it. The way my brain would do it is 12.93.
So go ahead and take the next 30 seconds to estimate what is 12.93 minus 6.1. Is it A, B, C, or D? Alright, so if you put A, then you are correct because we round 12 to 13, because that is the nearest whole number. I'll write that on there real quick. We round 12 to 13 minus, and then we round 6.126. 13 minus 6 is 7. And that's all for today. Don't forget to finish your independent practice in these slides. Once you're done, GChat Mr. Juarez for answers to check your work. Turn in these slides when you're ready to take the exit ticket. Then take the exit ticket on Edulastic. The link is posted in Google Classroom. And if you have trouble, please GChat me. Remember, Truman State, your next class is at 10:20 a.m. and UCO, your next class is at 12 p.m. So next, please stay in the Zoom call to work on the independent practice with Mr. Juarez. You do not need to stay, but if you leave, you need to be working on your independent practice.